In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, more than 2,000 miles from the nearest continent, lies one of the most isolated inhabited places on Earth. A tiny island covered with nearly 900 giant stone faces, silent, watching, waiting. Who carved them? How were they moved across this remote island without machines, without metal, without wheels? And perhaps most mysterious of all, what happened to the civilization that created them? This is the story of the Rapa Nui people, the makers of the Moai. A civilization of master builders, ingenious farmers, and spiritual visionaries. A civilization who may have pushed their island to the edge of collapse, or perhaps became victims of forces beyond their control. Easter Island, known to its people as Rapa Nui, is one of the most isolated islands on Earth. The nearest inhabited land lies over 1,000 miles away, and yet, centuries ago, Polynesian navigators somehow crossed the vast Pacific Ocean to reach it, without compasses, without maps, without modern instruments. Only the stars, the currents, and generations of knowledge guided them. Experts believe the first settlers arrived sometime between 800 and 1200 CE. They likely came from islands far to the west, possibly the Marquesas or Mangareva Islands, bringing with them bananas, taro, sugarcane, chickens, and the traditions of Polynesian culture. But they also arrived in a fragile world, a small volcanic island with limited resources and no way out. When the first settlers arrived, Rapa Nui looked very different from today. The island was once covered in dense palm forests. Seabirds filled the skies. Freshwater sources existed across the land. But paradise can be fragile. To the newcomers, it may have seemed like paradise. Over generations, the Rapa Nui developed a complex and highly organized society. At the center of their culture was ancestor worship. They believed powerful spirits of the dead continued to guide the living, and those spirits would soon take physical form through stone. The Moai statues were carved entirely by hand, using only stone tools. Each giant figure represented an important ancestor, a chief, or a sacred leader. The statues were believed to contain spiritual energy known as mana. Mana protected the people, blessed crops, and maintained balance between the living and the dead. Most Moai stood around 4 meters tall and weighed nearly 13 tons, an impossible achievement for an isolated island civilization, or so it seems. Nearly all the Moai came from one place, a volcanic crater called Rano Raraku. This mountain became the workshop of giants. Hundreds of statues remain here today. Some are half-finished, others still attached to the bedrock. As if the workers suddenly vanished mid-task. The stone itself was relatively soft volcanic ash rock called tuff. The sculptors first carved the front of the statue directly into the mountainside. Then the figure was separated from the rock, lifted upright, and somehow transported across the island. Some traveled over 10 miles, across hills, rough terrain, and volcanic slopes. Without cranes, without animals, without wheels. Even today, the mystery remains one of archaeologists' greatest puzzles. How did they move them? For centuries, people proposed impossible theories. Aliens? Lost civilizations? Unknown technology? But the answer may be far simpler and far more human. One modern theory suggests the statues were made to walk. Using ropes tied around the head and base, teams of workers rocked the moai side to side, slowly moving them forward. In 2012, researchers successfully tested the method, and astonishingly, it worked. Ancient Rapa Nui legends may even support this idea. They claim the statues walked with spiritual power. Perhaps the stories remembered the truth all along. Other researchers believe wooden sledges and rollers were used, but both theories require one critical resource: trees, and over time, the forest began to disappear. Most of the moai do not face the ocean. Instead, they look inward, toward the villages, toward the people they protected. The statues stood atop sacred stone platforms called ahu, ceremonial centers where rituals and gatherings took place. The moai were guardians, silent protectors watching over the living community. Only one major group faces outward toward the ocean, the 7 moai at Ahu Akivi. Their purpose remains uncertain. Some believe they represented legendary explorers. Others think they aligned with celestial events. The island still keeps many secrets. Many statues once wore enormous red stone hats called pukau. Some weighed up to 12 tons. These were carved from a different volcanic quarry, then somehow lifted onto already standing statues, an engineering feat still difficult to explain. Then something changed. By the 1600s and 1700s, the island entered a crisis. The forests were gone. Without trees, canoes could no longer be built. Fishing became harder. Soil eroded into the sea. Food shortages increased. Competition grew. And violence may have followed. Across the island, the great statues were toppled. One by one, clan against clan. The guardians of the ancestors fell into ruin. For decades, many believed Easter Island was a warning. A civilization that destroyed its own environment, but newer research tells a more complicated story. Recent studies suggest the population may never have been as massive as once believed. The Rapa Nui developed advanced farming techniques using rock gardens, protecting crops from wind and conserving moisture. Some evidence suggests they managed their resources carefully. If collapse came, it may not have been entirely self-inflicted. In 1822, Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen became the first European to record the island. What he found shocked him. Towering statues, standing across the landscape like silent giants. But European arrival brought devastating consequences. Diseases spread rapidly. Slave raids soon followed. Hundreds of islanders were captured and taken away. Many never returned. By 1877, only 111 native Rapa Nui people remained. Centuries of cultural knowledge nearly vanished forever. Songs, traditions, stories, lost or fragmented into silence. And yet, the Rapa Nui civilization survived. Today, the descendants of the island's original people still live on Easter Island, preserving language, traditions, and memory. The fallen moai have slowly been restored, standing once more against the Pacific winds. The story of Easter Island is not simply one of collapse, it is also a story of survival, of ingenuity, adaptation, and human ambition. Across the centuries, the moai still stand watch, silent witnesses to a lost world. A reminder that even the greatest civilizations can rise and fall, but also that humanity leaves echoes behind, carved into stone, buried in memory, waiting to be rediscovered. The story ends here, or does it? Thank you for watching Echoes Beyond. If you dare to go deeper, like, subscribe, and return, because some truths refuse to stay buried. The end.